The Steam Summer Sale is your last chance to get some really big deals for quite a few months. So running through until July 13th, let's take a look across genres at the Steam Summer Sale with some extravagant picks and some chump change deals. Let's jump straight into the video. And we're starting with a game that's not even a game. Sorry, a bit of a cop-out. This is the Steam DECK, and it's actually 20% off. I think the first time that Steam themselves have sold it at a discount. This is important for two reasons. Firstly, if you live in a region where you can actually buy this thing, I do not, then you'll be able to grab it officially from Steam at a 20% off discount. If you don't, you might be able to leverage it against other retailers. Again, unfortunately for me, living in New Zealand, I both can't say the name of this product without the YouTube algorithm punishing me, nor can I pick up this deal, but it might be available to you. Now let's jump in and take a look at the actual games. First off, we have The Witcher 3 Complete Edition, which is 70% off, bringing it down to around $14 US. You might notice my prices are a little bit out here or there. That's because of regional price differences only. What does The Witcher 3 offer and why should I grab it now? Well, to answer the second part of your question, of course, we have a new series coming out on Netflix. If you're a fan of that, it will be Henry's last one too, I believe. But moving back to the game, what does The Witcher 3 offer and why is this a good deal in particular? Well, if you've been living under a rock, let me briefly catch you up from CD Projekt Red. This is the overwhelmingly positively reviewed open world RPG set, of course, inside of this fantastic Witcher setting, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and in this case I'm recommending the Complete Edition because it's just such a great deal. It's a very story-rich campaign, and while the combat might not quite be as harsh or as detailed as something like Elden Ring, those more Souls-like franchises, you will still find some challenge here. It's not just a simple point and shoot, though that's not really the focus. Of course, the focus is the world, the story-rich, story-driven world as you hunt monsters, and I think that the Complete Edition with all of the DLC for just a couple of extra bucks is the way to go. Now we have a new entry, a new game on my list. This game is called Dave the Diver, and at 10% off it might not seem like the most outstanding special, but the reason why it's here isn't actually for that discount, but because of the incredible positive reception that Dave the Diver has received. It might come across as a little bit of a meme at first, but actually what you have here is a really interesting blend of a casual exploration game, obviously in the deep sea, but it's merged with an RPG that is actually incredibly fascinating. Because you see, at nighttime, you, my friend, run a sushi restaurant, and you manage everything that you could imagine to do with running that restaurant, operating it, and of course making it successful. During the day, of course, you are Dave the Diver, a casual RPG explorer, exploring not just to find fruits for your restaurant, but also there's sort of this overarching story, secrets of the mysterious blue hole. You know, what does this world offer? What does it deliver? It's an indie game, and as I mentioned in the introduction, it really has taken Steam by storm. It released only a few days ago at the time of recording this video, about a week, and it has since had 17,000 positive reviews, overall leaving it with a 97% rate of positivity. I think it's worth checking out. Next on my list, we have a classic favorite that I couldn't not recommend, Elden Ring, at 30% off. Elden Ring, of course, hit the world by storm last year, winning all kinds of awards, sometimes controversially, other times not so much. It is a Dark Souls-like fantasy RPG, set in a very open world with loading screens here or there, but you'll still be able to be completely immersed inside of what it offers. And if we compare it to, say, something like The Witcher 3 that we were looking at earlier, well, how does this actually differ? Elden Ring, of course, leans into that Souls-like experience much more so than something like The Witcher 3. While they're both open-world RPGs, Elden Ring is dark, hardcore, and reasonably unforgiving. Though I think it does take steps just slightly away from that really unforgiving Souls experience to allow it to open itself up to new players, and that's probably one of the reasons why it was so successful. Its co-op is really fun to bring a friend or a few into your world, and the main story is gripping and challenging. At 30% off, Elden Ring is a great deal. Also a great deal, the next item on my list, Horizon Zero Dawn, 67% off. Brings it to around $19 US. You know, when a PlayStation exclusive manages to find its way onto PC, it's probably a really great game. And of course, Horizon isn't the only example of that, but I think it is a great example, as demonstrated by its trailer, of a game that really took the strengths of PC in its stride. We have, of course, widescreen options, proper frame rates, everything that you might expect and really want a game like this to deliver. Because it is a beautiful world, a beautiful open world. I'd say this is more of an adventure RPG than this sort of gear, loot, kind of Borderlands style RPG. This one is more about the world and hunting down these majestic, futuristic looking machines that have a nice natural element to them too. Next on my list, we have Dredge, 20% off at about $20. If you've watched the video right the way through, you might think, man, this guy really likes his ocean games. First he's given me Dave the Diver, now he's trying to tell me Dredge. What is this guy trying to push down my throat? Actually, it's another fantastic game. This one released earlier in 2023. Similarly to Dave the Diver, came a little bit out of nowhere from a somewhat indie developer and took Steam and the PC gaming community more broadly by storm. Overwhelmingly positively reviewed, about 95%. This is an exploration game all about fishing, but this time it has a slightly darker, more horrific sense to it. It differs from Dave the Diver in that you're not also running a sushi restaurant, but in this game it's really about exploring this mysterious world. There are loads of deep buried secrets that you will of course dredge up, no pun intended, it's literally what you do. But there's also a lot of danger out there in this ocean, danger and mystery. And that's what sets Dredge apart from a lot of other, maybe sort of more casual adventure exploration games. And man, oh man, I'm not just saying this because it was developed by a team, Black Salt Games from New Zealand. I have to say that Dredge is such a gem, well worth checking out. Next, my controversial pick for the video, Cyberpunk 2077. At 50% off, it brings it down to about $30 US, a price point that, for me personally, is about as high as I would recommend. So while this is a great special, it comes just inside of my parameters. Now, why is that? Well, in case you don't know, Cyberpunk 2077 is, of course, this massive open-world sci-fi RPG. It released in 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago, and it tanked a bit, right? It tanked like No Man's Sky tanked. Why? Well, because it didn't deliver on what it promised, but also, I think potentially more dangerously, it didn't deliver on the hype that we had built around it as a broader community. It didn't deliver because its performance was terrible. I bought it on day one and refunded it on day one. So why does it come back with a recommendation now? Well, much like No Man's Sky, the team behind it, CD Projekt Red again actually, have worked really hard to patch it, deliver it, and improve the product. And I think they've done a good job at that. I think actually they've done quite a good job at that. And now, of course, we have a new DLC coming, Phantom Liberty, which is expected to bring a lot of features, granted that we might have expected from the start to be there, but it's expected to bring a lot of new features and a big refresh to the game. I think that now could be a good time to pick it up again, and at the very least, try it out. We always, of course, have the refund option to fall back on if we don't like it, but I think if you're like me, you'll be pleasantly surprised with how this game has developed over time, and you might even be excited about the Phantom Liberty DLC releasing later this year. Moving through to a less controversial pick. This, my friends, is Hades. Hades received so many reviews, it's not even worth going into them. It was overwhelmingly positively reviewed from the day it came out, and it remains that way, which is saying something. This puppy is an action roguelike game. It's all about, obviously, as you can tell, hack and slash, but I think it's the roguelike elements that actually set this apart from everything else. You are fighting some pretty devilish looking underworld gods, move through, level up, gear up, improve yourself, your heroes, and ultimately, of course, potentially lose them all as you roll through. You'll move through different kinds of combat, different level design, the sound design, everything about this game, and don't be fooled by the graphics, the somewhat, classic retro styled graphics, because everything that they've done about Hades works so well. And of course, one final thing to note is that Hades 2 is on the way. We're yet to actually get a release date, I think, but it's coming. Hades, the original, is still a fantastic deal. And because I mentioned the Steam DECK at the start of the video, I think it would also be important here to just quickly mention that almost all of the entries in this list I've picked out because they're great games, but also because they tend to be controller friendly. or Steam DECK friendly. That, I think, doesn't speak necessarily to why I've picked the games, but it's just another thing to remember, that you can play these games on a variety of platforms with a variety of inputs, and Hades is no different. The next item on my list, a strategy game for the fans out there. This is Anno 1800. I have recommended this already in my strategy game video, but I felt like it needed to be recommended here because we're likely talking to somewhat of a different audience. Anno 1800 is a city-building strategy simulation game that I think in some ways rivals the likes of City Skylines. But of course, City Skylines is actually about designing cities and networks, whereas Anno is, in of itself, more of an economic simulator of the past. If you like games like Age of Empires, if you like games like Civilization, you'll probably like Anno 1800. It's a solid industrial revolution city builder with a wonderful network of trade, of resource management, and of economic simulation around it. And of course, it brings with it something that a simulation game, a brilliant one like City Skylines, couldn't do, and that is warfare. Because while you're an explorer and an exploiter, you could also be a conqueror and a liberator. A great pickup. Next on my list, and taking us slightly back towards the Souls-like area, this is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Initially, I think a PS4 exclusive, I want to say, that's now potentially found its way onto a platform that can deal with what it offers in a bit more of a meaningful way. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice is, again, a Souls-like action game. This one purely focuses on delivering an atmospheric single-player experience. And of course now, as the user-defined tags on Steam put it, it's a ninja setting. To maybe somewhat simplifying it, this is a story, of course, that is enriched with Japanese lore. It's about revenge, it's about honor, and it's about bringing destruction. The fights are difficult. It's Souls-like combat, so you will be challenged by the combat, the parrying, the trying to deflect and then get that crucial blow. What it also delivers, though, is more of an atmospheric Japanese-like setting. Again, honor, revenge, integrity. All of these things feature really heavily in the story, and it's delivered absolutely beautifully. Another classic from the PlayStation, it's worth checking out. Next, a cheap pick, and a goodie at that. This is Stardew Valley. At 34% off, it's down at around $7 US. 34% off might not seem like a great discount for a game that was released in, get this, 2016. Jeepers, but Stardew Valley has absolutely stood the test of time. This is a farming simulator. It's also kind of a life simulator in a way. And of course, it's a pixel graphics game, as you will have already gathered. If you somehow haven't heard of Stardew Valley, that's its description. Why does it make it onto the list for some of the best picks if it's only got a 30% off discount? Because it's a damn good game. It has received a lot of patches over its lifetime, though now, to be fair, it's in a finished state, with multiplayer having been picked up since it first came out and a whole load of other things. I think that Stardew Valley is a really relaxing game, maybe a bit different to some of the more hardcore, intense, Souls-like features on this list. It brings almost the total opposite. But the progression that it delivers in building up your farm, your town, building relationships with these wonderful little pixelated people, and exploring, fighting, you name it, Stardew Valley has it all. It's an easy pickup. And the final recommendation on my list, again, a repeat if you've seen my other video, Civilization 5 and 6. Both of them, I think, deserve a shout out. And so I'm going to do both of it here. What are they? They are 4X historical strategy simulation games. And if you're a fan of my channel, you already know that. So I won't dwell anymore on these wonderful worlds that pull in human technology, advancement, and culture inside of this world where we can literally design our own empire and push for greatness. Now, in terms of Civilization 6, if you're absolutely new to the franchise, you should grab the base game, and just the base game. It's 90% off. You can get it from money you'd find literally behind the couch, okay? This thing is easy. If you've got a little bit more money behind you, or you're a bit more familiar with strategy games, then I'd definitely recommend the Anthology. It'll bring all of the DLC, the paid DLC that's been released for Civ 6 over now sort of 6-ish years, and it'll turn it into a much more well-formed recommendation, I think. And finally, of course, Civilization 5, my personal favorite, although much more of a classic game, not looking quite as bright and cartoony as what you're seeing on screen here with Civ 6, is also on special. For the first time in forever, at least From what I can remember, the complete edition is about 90% off, bringing it down to around $10 US. Thank you so much for joining me today for some of my top picks for the Steam Summer Sale. Let me know what I missed below, and I'll see you next time.